So here we're drawing a plasma membrane, and essentially that's the outer layer of the structure. And that's true for prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. The main difference between those two types of cells we can talk about another time, but it's sufficient to know for now that it's just the difference is just the presence or absence of a nucleus. So the nucleus is essentially where the genetic information is stored. It's where DNA is, and where mRNA, tRNA, rRNA is produced from the DNA copies. So right at the center of the nucleus, where we have this black blob, is the nucleolus. The main point that's important about the nucleolus is that certain RNAs are produced there, including like the ribosomal RNAs. The nucleus is the bit that surrounds the nucleolus essentially, and we can distinguish them in microscope images. Then that's surrounded by the nuclear envelope, which has little pores which allows it to communicate with the rest of the cell, the cytoplasm. The nuclear envelope is continuous with the endoplasmic reticulum, which can basically be split up into two groups, or two types of endoplasmic reticulum, which have slightly different functions. Those two types are one, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and you have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. They differ in terms of how they appear. The rough endoplasmic reticulum has lots of ribosomes studied on its surface, so those appear when you look under the microscope as little beads, essentially, like little dots on it, and that's where proteins are synthesized. In the rough endoplasmic reticulum, you get modifications of proteins, so glycosylation, disulfide bridge formation, that kind of thing. In the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, you form lipids and other things which are important to be inserted into the plasma membrane. So when vesicles leave the endoplasmic reticulum, they go to the Golgi apparatus, and then they can go towards the plasma membrane. An important part of the cell, in some eukaryotic cells at least, is the mitochondria. Mitochondria is the main powerhouse of the cell. It produces a lot of ATP and keeps the cell running. It's sort of like the engine of the cell. Plants, or particular types of plant cells, have something else, and we call that the chloroplasts. The chloroplasts, like the mitochondria, have double membranes, and actually they have a third membrane inside, which we call thylakoid membranes. But that's not too important. The main thing to know about for now is that chloroplasts are the site of photosynthesis. A final thing to be aware of is the lysosomes. Now, lysosomes are essentially big vesicles. So all a vesicle is an organelle, or like a space, essentially, just like an empty space filled with enzymes that can break things down. And lysosomes are important when you take something up from the environment to then break it down. So for example, like a bacteria or a food particle, something like that, you break it down inside lysosomes, and we call that process endocytosis. Overall, this is a bit of a simplification of eukaryotic cell structures, and there are lots more nuances and much more complicated things associated with it. But that doesn't matter too much. The main thing to know at this stage is that there's these organelles which have specialized functions inside the eukaryotic cell structures.